I don't like to think about my freshman year in college. I went away from home. I went far away from a lot of things my freshman year of college. And first party I went to, I drank enough to nearly die. I worshiped at the throne of the porcelain god for a few hours that night, and it was pretty bad. And I can't say that that was the only time that ever happened. I got into at least 3 brawls my freshman year in college. None of them too serious, but enough to, today you'd probably get arrested if the police were watching you. Got a lot of stupid in me at that time in my life. Had a lot of stupid in me, had a lot of foolishness, had a lot of anger, had a lot of passion, a lot of sin. But by the end of my freshman year, I had also begun the exploration of spirituality and all over the place, all over the map, and started at least a process of self-reflection. So at the end of my 18th year, right before I went into my sophomore year of college, I did some introspection, and I had been camping at a beautiful campground in western Michigan, which is not far from the town that I was born. My dad was working in Battle Creek, Michigan, and they lived in this little rural town, and I was born in that town, and only lived there for probably a year of my life as an infant, so I had no memory of it. But as I was going through this process of introspection, I came to the realization of what an absolute turd I had been to my parents, in particular. That I had been so ungrateful, and so spoiled, and so rude, and so disrespectful in so many ways throughout my adolescence, that I needed to do something about that. But before I left that place to go back home or to go to school, I realized that I was only about half an hour away from the place that I was born, Pennock Hospital in Hastings, Michigan. And so I drove there. I've been camping. I wasn't too great looking, pretty scruffy. And I just kind of walked, and you can do this today. I walked into the hospital, walked into the labor and delivery department, said, "Hey, I was born here. Can I look around?" "Yeah, sure." Can't do that today. Now that you've got to run through the metal detector. So I found a room that felt like this could be the place where I was born. I'm like, this would have been what it was like. And I spent about 5 to 10 minutes just there on my knees praying, because I knew that I was giving thanks to God for my life. And then finally, when I left there, I went home and I saw my parents, and I have sinned before heaven and earth. I'm not worthy to be called here. I thank you. I'm sorry. And they had no idea what to say. They were like, "What the heck?" "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." You like this. So, unfortunately, that was only the first step, and I took another 4 years to figure out the rest with God, my Heavenly Father. I still had a lot more stupid to work out of me. But that was the beginning of the turn, the beginning of the return. And for all these years, when I read the prodigal son story, I of course think of that. I think of my life. I think of myself as the prodigal son. But now, for the first time in my life, both my parents are gone and I have children. And I think, when I read that story, I don't identify with the prodigal son anymore. I identify with the father in the story. Because I felt that fear when your children walk out the door. And you hope they're up to good things. But at your age, you weren't. You know what you were doing when you were their age, and you're praying, "Please, don't let karma come back to me now. Please let my repentance have been sufficient." But you can't. There's no guarantee. And I've talked over the years with parents who suffered, who've seen their children really go into some dark places, afraid that they would get a call one day and that their children aren't going to come back. And that's even happened. It's a terrifying thing to be a father in this world. It's a hard thing to be a parent. And we want so much our children not to make the same mistakes that we did. But we have to give them the freedom to do that. I was telling a couple of people a few weeks ago, I watched this video. Somebody shared this on Facebook, right? And I'm like, oh, that looks cute. It was a thing about birds. And there was this beautiful cliff-dwelling bird with its nest, and it had this little, I don't know what, it was like a swan-like bird or something, I don't remember what kind it was. But it had barely any feathers, right? And it was showing, and now it's time for the bird to leave the nest. I'm like, oh, this is going to be wonderful, right? And you see this thing scuttle to the edge of the nest, and all you see is the nest and some rocks, right? You're thinking, no big deal, it'll fall out of the nest, it'll be cute. This thing teeters off the edge of this nest and leaps. And this is on the top of a cliff. And this thing starts fly like a parachute guy, right? Flying like this, not flapping, nothing, just falling. And you're like, stop! Get back in the nest! At first I'm like, this is good. He's flying, he's gonna make it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, he's going way too fast. And then I couldn't believe it. I'm watching this video, the thing hits the rocks. Boom! Spin, hit, spin, hit. I'm like, there's no way this thing's gonna live. What am I watching? What have you done to me? I'm crying, this poor bird. It lands finally in a heap on the ground, and I'm like, this is nature. I should have known. Death. Children die on nature programs, right? The little gazelles and the little babies. Oh my gosh. The mom and the dad are sitting there waiting for their baby, like, okay, you did it. And they walk up and they nuzzle this little gosling type bird, and it comes back to life. And it survives. And it just goes about its business. That's life. My heart was pounding. Couldn't believe what I was saying. I thought, this is parenthood. This is parenthood. I want to have the peace of mind of those two birds that watch their young one fall out of the nest. Come on, get up. It's okay. And the little bird got up. Kind of punch drunk, but alive. And kept going. I pray that that will be the worst that might happen to my own children, right? But I know they're going to fall. I know they're going to have times when they have problems. I know when my spiritual children go off into the world, they're going to have temptations and troubles and falls. And I just pray that when they hit and they spin, they still get up at the end of that roll. Because, man, that is scary for a parent. Scary for a spiritual father as well. It's easy to read the parable of the prodigal son and say, well, the father, it's an image of God, and so God has no anxieties. God knows. He's full of love. He's all good. Right? Until you're in that situation. And you're the one who has to watch your child make these decisions on their own, and you can't manage that anymore. They're on their own. They're in mid-flight. And you just pray and you hope. But here's our task then for you parents. For you children, please, don't stress out your parents too much. Don't scare them so horribly. But for parents, don't be so afraid either. Realize that it's out of your hands. But God is still good. And God is still with them as they take that flight and they do their stupid things. He's still watching. He's still around them. He's still protecting them. And in time, He will lead them where they need to be if they're willing to take His guidance. And the best thing that we can do as parents is to model that same type of love and trust. And my kids, I tell them, I told my son, you're 18 now. You are effectively an adult. You are going to make your own decisions. I still reserve the right as your father to offer you advice, whether you like it or not, as my parents did to me, and to set the boundaries that exist in my own home, right? But I trust you to make your decisions and to live with those consequences and to have more wisdom than I do, God willing. And that's just a hard place to be, and it can be very scary to be there. But if we love them, I have a friend who I don't know what happened, but I have a feeling he was kind of a hard guy, strict father, just very judgmental. And, when his son kind of went off the reservation, he didn't come back and he won't talk to his father. He's done. He's cut off communication with the whole family. And I think about it, and I knew this kid when he was young, and I had high hopes for him, and I was just shocked to hear that happened. It saddens me. I hate to think that should happen to any one of us or our children. If we're accepting, loving, and open-armed as the prodigal son's father was for him, I think we have a chance. I think we'll have a chance. We have to model the love of God as parents. I don't know what else to tell you. Go off, do no harm, love one another, and forgive. Christ is among us.